Hello, welcome to the Toffee Blues. I'm Max, back from the absence of from the podcast last week. I've been asked to do a preview of Sunday's 4:30 kickoff at Goodison Park against Chelsea. So just to give you the rundown on Chelsea's league performance so far this season, they played 29, won 17, drawn 6 and lost 6, got a goal difference of plus 19, and they're currently in 6th place. They've won 4 of the last 5 games in all competitions, following their League Cup final defeat against Manchester City. Obviously, that came with, the emergence of the narrative of Kepa against Sarri, which personally I believe the media treated as if it was some groundbreaking abnormality. But I'd say certainly since 2003, when Roman Abramovich took ownership of the companies that own Chelsea, having players versus the manager or board versus the manager isn't that uncommon. I'll delve more into that in a bit, but just to give you the potential lineup for Chelsea on the weekend: Kepa, and I hope I don't butcher this pronunciation, Arrizabalaga, Cesar Azpilicueta, captain at right back, Antonio Rudiger and David Luiz at centre half. You've got Marcos Alonso left back or Emerson. The 3 in midfield: N'Golo Kante, Jorginho, Mateo Kovacic. And you've obviously got the potential replacements of Ruben Loftus-Cheek, or we all know who, Ross Barkley. And the front 3 of Willian, Giroud, who scored 2 in midweek. However, that might be Higuain, who's a doubt with a fever. Obviously, on the other side, you've got the star man, Belgian international Eden Hazard. As I just said there, Chelsea are a very strange entity almost. Speaking from personal experience, certainly when I was growing up through primary school, maybe in high school, it just seemed to be a 2-horse race between Chelsea or Manchester United for the league title. And as I mentioned, when Roman Abramovich took over in 2003, straight away he's adopted a hiring and firing mentality of coaching staff and managing staff. I think Claudio Ranieri was the manager when he first took charge, but within a year that was Jose Mourinho. Jose Mourinho goes on to work his magic, and I think that's what really got the Chelsea ecosystem rolling. Although that's been heavily criticised, it has brought Chelsea a hell of a lot of success. The trophy that we're Evertonians are most familiar with them achieving was the FA Cup in 2009, when obviously they beat Everton 2-1 at Wembley. Other notable wins are the FA Cup and Champions League double in 2012 and 2016-17, which I think is almost a different era for Chelsea, but that was their League Cup, their Premier League win under Antonio Conte. What I mean by I feel like that was a different era for Chelsea is I feel like up until 2012, when Manchester City won their first Premier League, that I feel like that gave birth to the new Big Six. You've got that's when broadcast revenues and the Premier League brand really skyrocketed in its valuation, and you have clubs such as Manchester United, such as Chelsea, such as Arsenal, who have all won the Premier League in my lifetime. Their ambitions change from not can we win the Premier League every season, it's can we make that top 4, or and can we maintain our position within the top 6 countries, in top 6 teams in the country. And at this present moment in time, that 2-horse race for this season, at least anyway, seems to be Manchester City and Liverpool, 2 teams that have had managers for. I know Jurgen Klopp's been at Liverpool for 4 years, and Pep's been at Manchester City for a couple of years now. Both were neither immediate success stories. However, they are embodiments of, if you give a manager time, they will produce success. I know Klopp's yet to win anything, but they're playing fantastic football and they're still fighting for a double. Obviously, Manchester City are fighting for a quadruple. I think you look at those two clubs in particular from Roman Abramovich's perspective, and throughout his reign at Chelsea, you've got them winning the league with Jose Mourinho, and I think that almost sets the benchmark from Chelsea's, Chelsea's perspective of themselves, which don't get me wrong, I feel like to be a successful club, you can't allow for sentiment. You've got to maintain a ruthlessness about you, and what better club represents that than Chelsea Football Club. I think in the 16 years that Abramovich has been there, they've had 15 managers. Take your pick: Avram Grant, Andre Villas-Boas, Rafa Benitez, Roberto Di Matteo, who was the one that won the Champions League with them. They also won the Europa League under Benitez too. But both managers were gone by the end of that season. And I feel like that is in the hope of finding someone that will bring immediate success and sustained success. That hasn't been the case with Maurizio Sarri, obviously, since when he's come in July of last year. Just from a football fan's perspective, to achieve 91 points and finish in second place in Serie A with Napoli, and give Juventus a real close run for the money, with and to have Sarri ball, your own brand of football, thrown about in the media, that is certainly attractive from an English club such as Chelsea wanting to be back amongst competing for the Premier League title. He's come in and he had a real, he did have real immediate success. I think they went 12 unbeaten until November. Their last game in that unbeaten run was a 0-0 draw at Stamford Bridge against Everton, which was a real, professional away performance from Everton. Defensively, they were a real solid unit to break. But since then, and that almost laid the blueprint for their Chelsea's defeat in their next game, which was a 3-1 against Tottenham Hotspur. How does this all translate to the game on Sunday? Is that, will we see another, quality defensive performance like that from Everton? I'm not entirely sure. We put in a really good defensive showing against Liverpool, 0-0 Merseyside derby. Obviously, the atmosphere was absolutely top notch for that, and personally, I feel like that played its part in keeping the Everton lads on their toes, making sure they fought for every ball until the final whistle. And I feel like if the Chelsea game was the next game following the Merseyside derby, we may have we'd obviously be carrying a hell of a lot more momentum into this. However, we're coming off blowing a 2-0 lead at half time and getting beat 3-2 for only the second time in our history. The other time that we've led 2-0 at half time and lost eventually 3-2. I think it was in the 1970s against Sheffield United. And although that fact or that figure won't have any significance over Marco Silva's season, I just feel like momentum's just wiped. It's completely wiped, and we're coming into a team. Obviously Chelsea have just qualified for the quarterfinals of the Europa League. That they're gonna be really looking to make ground back on the top four, and they've certainly got the players to hurt Everton. I was looking at the head-to-heads just before doing the record, and we have not beat Chelsea since the FA Cup in 2016. Obviously, we all know that game at Goodison Park. It's fantastic atmosphere and fantastic goals from Romelu Lukaku. But since then, we've only picked up 2 points in the next six meetings. 2 draws, sorry, in the next 6 meetings, and indicators are certainly swinging in the favour of Chelsea. However, as I said earlier, I feel like if Goodison Park is rocking, and that'll have the lads on their toes and wanting to put in another solid performance. I've got a Chelsea mate, and just to close on my comments on Chelsea, I've got a friend. I interviewed him for when Chelsea were visiting Goodison at this point last season, and he is extremely unhappy with Maurizio Sarri at Chelsea at the moment. And this is, I'm an Everton fan. I've literally not seen my club win a piece of silverware. But I think you just need to count your blessings. They're certainly still in contention for the Europa League and arguably the favourite. They may not be winning the Premier League every other year now, but they've still got the star power and the ability to pick up a league win or to go on and win a domestic trophy somewhere. They're maybe not at the team certainly hasn't got the same levels of cohesion as the likes of Manchester City or Liverpool. But I feel like by appointing Maurizio Sarri, a player who hugely brought on the careers of the likes of Dries Mertens. I've made notes on Dries Mertens here. In his first and second seasons under Sarri, he scored 34 and 22 goals. For those who know Dries Mertens, who's originally a winger, to be given the role as a false nine and to provide those give those returns within your first two seasons. There's certainly a great man manager in Maurizio Sarri. He gave Gonzalo Higuain a huge boost too, who is more of a traditional number 9, but that proves that he can roll with different systems. And as I mentioned earlier, he's a doubt with a fever, but he's a certain goal threat that we should be looking out for if he is to play at Goodison Park. Another player that you've got to make comment on too is Jorginho. And I think Jorginho was a player that embodies the formational and tactical revolution that Chelsea have had to undergo under Sarri. You're going from Antonio Conte, who rolls with a 3-4-3 and really active wing-backs who provide the bulk of their attacking play. You switch to Maurizio Sarri, who I was listening to Liam Rossini give his comments on Chelsea, and he likened how Maurizio Sarri wanted to play to Pep Guardiola, and I feel like that is a fantastic comment. Play is possession based, and it is dependent on that fixed pivot in the centre of midfield. For Pep Guardiola, that's Fernandinho, and for Maurizio Sarri at Napoli and now at Chelsea, that is Jorginho. That has come to Chelsea's detriment at times, because with that you've got a defence that isn't accustomed to playing as a 4. They are accustomed as playing at the 3 or a 5 with wing backs. And I heard Paul Merson say that he believes only Rudiger, Azpilicueta and Kante can defend out of that Chelsea lineup, which I feel like is a bit of a stretch. Because I still do feel like there are some fantastic individual players, but as I mentioned, the level of cohesion isn't there, and he's only been, Sarri's only been there since July, and it's just there's a real culture in football at the moment that if you haven't got a happy camp 100% of the time, that there's something wrong. However, like Arsenal under Unai Emery, like Manchester United the first under Jose Mourinho, and now Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, there is and maybe not to the same level or degree, but Everton trying to change under Marco Silva. The clubs are undergoing a period of transition at the moment, and you have those stable clubs, as mentioned, such as Liverpool, such as Manchester City, that are succeeding at the minute, and those transitional clubs that are really starting to find their feet and reintegrate themselves and find a team. Chelsea have certainly proved that they can they can be a force to contend with their 12 their 12 games unbeaten earlier in the season. And will they do it against Everton at the weekend? I know this has just basically sounded like me going off about Chelsea over the last 16-20 years, but I think you've got to take that in context. Towards the latter parts of the seasons, I feel like this is where the big clubs such as Chelsea really start looking at every single game as right. We need every game that looks like we should be achieving 3 points, we've got to take the 3 points. And if you're Chelsea, looking at Everton at the moment, this is a 3-point game. This should be 3 points, and you want to make ground on that top four. From an Everton perspective, like I mentioned, if the crowd's up for it, I really feel like we could give them a run for the money. But I am not hugely confident. We should be looking at this as similar to Chelsea. We've got big games coming up to end the season. After this, we've got West Ham who've been playing well this season. We've got Arsenal. We've got Fulham, although a lesser team. We've then got Manchester United. Then we've got Tottenham too. Big games that, if we find ourselves in cup finals in the years to come, it may be against opposition of that calibre, and we really need to start proving ourselves. So Sunday is a great opportunity for that. And in terms of what can you say to Evertonians and the audience of this, is turn up. And I know the Newcastle game was disheartening to see us fold like that, but you saw how much improved the performance was because the atmosphere was rocking. I know there's plans for flags and banners, and I endorse that fully. And fingers crossed, hopefully Marco Silva's learned from his mistakes last weekend, and we can put in a good shift. Hopefully we can cause an upset. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed the preview of the game, and make sure you subscribe to the Toffee Blues across all social media platforms. Cheers.